and play into your counter spells seems where you would want to be in the matchup.
Well, yes and no. So the difference, though, is that if you look at Todd's list, because the Tarmo Twin deck typically does not play very much permission. So if you look at his counter spells, he has 2 Cryptic Command, 1 Spell Pierce, 4 Remand, and that's actually it. Outside of that, he's looking at Lightning Bolts, Flame Slashes. In this matchup, Seth will generally try to combo Todd as opposed to playing a tempo game.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the counter spells are definitely where Todd has made a concession. That said, if Todd is able to draw a Tarmogoyf alongside a counter spell, Seth might not have enough time to get everything he needs going before Todd just beats him down with Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I believe this is a matchup where, when I've seen it played in Modern, I generally want to actually be on the blue-red side of things, as odd as that sounds. Anyway, we'll see. It's going to be a pretty close one either way. So we are underway here. Looking at Todd Anderson, he's on your left. He's playing the Tarmo Twin, or Teamer Twin, as you would. Starts out with Scalding Tarn into Island, has a pair of Serum Visions in his opener.
It's so funny watching, I watch a lot of Legacy, and the difference between Ponder, Preordained, Brainstorm, and Serum Visions is noticeable.
This card's not as good.
It is not as good. That's fine, because one constructed format where that's the best thing to be doing is enough for my taste, but it is surprising.
It's fun when you first get PLAs from Legacy coming to mind. I'm like, okay, I can play Serum Visions. What else? I'm like, well, Sleight of Hand. I'm like, okay, I'll play those. Like, you should really cast that card before you say you're going to play those. Like, that card's miserable. Anyway, we're going over to Seth.
I mean, still clearly good enough to play.
You play it in Storm because you got to play something that's 1 in cantrips, but it is not great.
There's a lot of decks that are playing 4 copies. So even though the card's not great compared to our standards that we're used to for those kind of effects, clearly still more than enough for a variety of decks. We see it in Jeff's deck, which is just a normal 3-color.
He had Sleight of Hand also?
Serum
Visions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's all over the place in these combo decks.
Serum Visions is great, which is weird because it's a really awkward Preordain if you look at it through Legacy glasses. But good enough, both players are going to go ahead and make one on turn 1. And some positioning here. At this point, it might be reasonable to think that the players know what the other person is on.
Well, they probably spent a lot of the tournament next to each other.
Right.
So that helps a lot.
Todd going to go ahead and top off this Serum Visions. And another Serum Visions and a land into play tapped. Just going to set up for the first few turns here. Going back over to Seth, Mountain and Pass. Both players really just setting up for the first couple turns. Todd with the Serum Visions each point along the way. Does have a Tarmogoyf and a fetch land, so he may be able to get that one down right now. Being on the play means he can spend another turn doing that. Instead, he's just going to represent a end-step Exarch with Wooded Foothills.
Yep. Put the pressure on Seth to leave up the mana. If something happens to the Exarch, it's a window to get Tarmogoyf into play. And if it sticks, that's good too.
Shock for Steam Vents from Seth. Don't expect to see any action from him. He's definitely the combo deck in this one. Leaves up 3 and passes to Todd. So first action is on Todd, whether or not he chooses to go for the end-step Exarch. And that end-step fetch of a forest is pretty telling, if Seth didn't know what he was on already.
Right, you often see, let's say, a Stomping Ground in some of these lists, so they can facilitate Ancient Grudge out of the sideboard, but a forest is a giveaway that there's got to be actual green cards somewhere in Todd's list.
Exactly. Deceiver Exarch is the play from Todd Anderson. Does Seth want to fight? Generally not. There's not a clean way to fight over this is one of the issues.
Right.
You can remand it if you need to buy time.
But then, the shields are down for Todd to potentially resolve something, and now with the forest being shown, that something might be Tarmogoyf.
Right, and you'd much rather get Tarmogoyf. Todd there goes and just taps the Steam Vents, and he'll get to untap. Has another Exarch, a Pestermite, and a Tarmogoyf. That will likely be Todd's game plan, is to use those creatures to pressure.
Yep. Cryptic Command too, so if you can get out on front of the board, play more threats at instant speed, Cryptic Command might be able to keep Seth off of whatever his big payout is.
Yeah, and that's the thing you have to worry about though, right? Is because if Seth goes for the combo, Todd actually doesn't have too much defense for it.
You will be accepting signups for either of those events.
Deceiver Exarch swings for 1, Todd will cast Serum Visions.
If you're anticipating playing one of those events or would like to register tonight, once again, we will be following the registration for both.
Draw 2 more scries. Full set of Serum Visions being cast for Todd here.
And I think looking at a pretty juicy one over there in Snapcaster Mage and Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, a lot of good threats. Can keep them both on top. Kind of just try to aggro Seth out here. One thing that you actually can do as defense against the combo if you're Todd is you can leave a Pestermite up, and then if Seth goes for the combo, you tap the creature he puts the Splinter Twin on, so then it can't attack this turn. And then because Seth would be out of mana, you could untap and maybe Cryptic Command bounce it.
Use a removal spell, something like that.
Right. It does turn on cards like Flame Slash to answer the combo. Meanwhile, Seth just continues to make untapped lands past the turn. He'll pass again. Todd's going to continue flashing in creatures. Here's another Deceiver Exarch. Needs to... You can really view it that Seth's the combo deck. Todd needs to get a clock on to pressure Seth into attempting to combo before he wants to.
Right, it's a slow clock, but Todd's hand is what it is. This is sort of the game plan that allows him to execute.
Yeah, first move actually by Seth. In response to the Exarch triggers, Seth casts his own Exarch and untaps a copy of Steam Vents.
Right, so now he has access to his Deceiver Exarch with 2 mana at the ready.
Yep, swing in from Todd. 1 each. Seth not going to block in respect of Lightning Bolt. Down to 14.
Creature / Cleric is a pretty weird type line. No race on that thing. It's just a
Exarch it's just a Cleric. It only
creature
has a job.
- Cleric.
You can't have a job and not a race. That's not...
Very weird.
Yeah.
Just noticed that.
Tarmogoyf's a Lurgoyf also.
It's a Lurgoyf.
Just Lurgoyf. And that's going to be a play from Todd.
And that line of play you mentioned before is still available to him. He has 3 mana up and a Pestermite in hand.
Right, it's his defense against the combo. Seth will go ahead and remand that Tarmogoyf. You see here, Todd not recasting it.
Yeah, at that point he would just be tapping out and asking to be killed.
Yeah. The way Seth has played this game, I think it is reasonable for Todd to assume that there is a twin in Seth's hand.
Yeah.
But what's nice about the play that Todd's doing, this tapping with a Pestermite if Seth goes for it, is that cards like Dispel that you see in Seth's deck don't actually apply here. They don't defend him from it. You'd need a remand, really.
And it looks like Todd has gotten the bait here. He has set this all up.
Yeah, there you go. So Seth goes for the kill. Todd, in response, taps the Deceiver Exarch. So Seth can't combo kill this turn. And, yeah, Todd priced into using the Cryptic Command then to bounce the Exarch.
Yeah, but Todd's not complaining. This sets Seth back quite a bit.
So bounce, draw. He'll tap out, make Tarmogoyf, and swing for 4. Seth is down to 9.
And land number 6 is such a big draw for Todd here because it allows him to follow up with the Tarmogoyf after the fact and means that the Snapcaster Mage that he has in his hand gives him access now to Cryptic Command.
Yeah, it does have enough. I was just kind of making sure he actually has enough blue, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
he does.
quadruple blue and 6 total mana. He's got Snapcaster plus Cryptic Command at the ready.
There still has to be worry on Todd's part that he's going to get recomboed by Seth here. It doesn't actually take that much. It takes a Splinter Twin and a negate, and then Todd will lose to it. Even, well, depending on how Todd plays this, there's a chance if Seth just main phase, say, makes Exarch here and untaps a land, then he has Cryptic Command up as well. On upkeep, it looks like Seth here, on upkeep, is going to use Deceiver Exarch to untap an island. And then use Cryptic to tap Todd's team, I believe.
But now Todd can just Snapcaster, Cryptic, bounce the Exarch, counter the Cryptic Command.
Right. And that should be, well, it's not lethal. It puts Seth to 1.
Right.
Just close enough. Todd can find a way to get another creature type in the graveyard to be lethal. He cannot attack since Seth's down to 1. Todd plays land and passes.
But Seth still can try to set up the same line of play.
Yeah.
Exarch plus Cryptic to pass through the turn, and then Splinter Twin for the kill.
This is still a dangerous game to be playing from the Team or Twin side of it. You cannot indefinitely keep them off the combo.
It's crazy too because it feels like Seth's been rocked the whole game. Every turn looks like it's gone badly for him, but he is still very much drawing live here.
Go ahead and pass the turn, and he may just go for the line you mentioned. Deceiver Exarch going to play on upkeep. Yeah, it's untapping a blue mana. Seth may just have the line we're mentioning. Upkeep, it's going to be Cryptic Command again. This time tapping and drawing. That'll work. The question would be, does Seth have does he have the Splinter Twin on the untap?
Yeah. I mean, Todd's got nothing, just a Tarmogoyf in hand, so.
Draw from Seth. He's not jamming it, though. He can still chain Snapcasters together and survive if he has those.
Yeah, he would need land number 6, but, Todd is by no means out of this. There's so many different lines of play that Seth have available to him to keep Todd from being able to attack. And as you mentioned before, Todd's deck here does not have a lot in the way of counters. He's not drawing to that many ways to stop this sequence from happening.
Yeah, absolutely not. So goes in and passes the turn, and that's it. Seth will go for the Snapcaster range. That's Cryptic tapping the team again. Seth surviving yet another turn at 1 life. Can Todd draw anything? He draws Pestermite. That's not bad here.
That's a huge draw here, as it means that Seth needs something besides Splinter Twin to win the game, as Todd can tap down the Deceiver Exarch.
And it looks like in the meantime, Seth has found a copy of Splinter Twin. Todd's going to try to tap it. Can Seth deal with that?
Yeah, Remand doesn't get Seth anywhere here.
He likely, I don't believe there's a card that lets him do it.
Well, if Seth has another land and another one of his creatures that come into play and does something, he can then untap the Deceiver Exarch and start going.
Surely, yeah, a land and an Exarch would
Right,
work. Yeah,
right. But it doesn't look like he
does
has
not.
it.
So Todd Anderson takes game 1 in what I honestly think is kind of a steal in the matchup.
It was funny because Todd was, it felt like every turn of the game Todd had was so good for him. And at the end there, he's still sweating bullets.
Yeah.
Still sweating bullets.
All right, so those players going on to game 2. Todd Anderson up 1-0. This is round 9 here of what is the first Star City Games Modern Open.
Yeah.
Those of you wondering and showing up to the Star City Games events, looking when are we going to have our next Modern Open, we now have our schedules for the rest of the year. Right now entering the end of Season 1, but Season 2 will be starting just after the end of the month. We go to our first Invitational in Richmond, and then we have a whole nother set of Opens.
Yeah, there's a lot of Standard being played in 2015, Season 2 is a short season. You have Syracuse, Providence, Cleveland, and then Seattle after that. After Seattle, we head to Dallas, a Legacy Open in Worcester, and then if you're looking to get back into the ring, play a little bit more modern here, Columbus, the Season 2 Invitational, tied to the Origins Game Fair. Modern and Standard will be the Invitational formats with a modern 2-day Open series. June 5th through 7th, me, you, and Cedric Phillips will be calling that one.
Yeah, that's going to be actually the first of time we've ever had Modern as one of our featured formats at the Invitational. So for those of you Modern players out there playing in Star City IQs at your local store, hoping to really break onto the scene and play some really high-level Modern, this is an event that you can get yourself to.
It's a very exciting format right now because, the results from the Pro Tour and the results from Grand Prix Vancouver would sort of suggest that Abzan and Twin are the two things to be doing. There's some other things going on the perimeter, but right now, the two undefeated players that we have on our players to watch playing Sultai Control and a throwback to a Blue Moon strategy with Tarmogoyf. So
yes, certainly not what you'd expect.
Right. No abrupt decays, there are abrupt decays in Gerard's list, but a lot of the stock cards, a lot of the stock decks, they aren't what's going on right now at 8-0. All right, although it's 7-1, 2 copies of Splinter Twin.
Let's look at the sideboards, though. So starting with Todd's sideboard, he is lacking in some permission pre-board, but a lot of that changes in game 2.
Yeah, he gets access to a Spellskite, a Dispel, 2 copies of Negate, a Vendilion Click. Those are the sweet cards, and a Counterflux that seems very good in this matchup. He has some other cards here like Thrun, Vandal Blast, Ancient Grudge, Batter Skull, Engineer Explosives. I don't think those are going to play huge roles in this matchup, but certainly the copies of the Counterspells, the Spellskite, and the Vendilion Click are very good.
Yeah, if he's going to try to... There's no real reason for him to go for, the creature plan. You sometimes see players, boarding into stuff like Batter Skulls, Karanoses, Thruns. Because he already has the Tarmogoyfs in the main deck, I don't feel like Todd actually needs to do that in this matchup.
Right, he's already kind of converted into a different sort of deck for game 1. So I think he definitely wants more counterspells, and more counterspells pair very nicely with Tarmogoyf because it's a way to really keep Seth off of his action.
Yeah, over on Seth's side, if you look at it, he does have the option to go towards something like Batterskull and Keranos. Also has 2 copies of Engineered Explosives if he wants to fight over things like Tarmogoyf. Certainly in that last game, an Engineered Explosives on 2 could have gone a long way.
It's weird because that's sort of an element. Todd's deck has some pretty valuable 2s. There really aren't that many floating around otherwise, though it is complicated with Spellskite.
Right, and Spellskite may mean Seth brings in some number of Ancient Grudge. He does have 3 in the sideboard. Typically, Teamer Twin does not play any Spellskite in the main deck. Seth certainly is an experienced modern player to know that. They have some number in the board, but it's not like Blue-Red Twin where you go up to, 3, 4 spell skites or anything like that.
And Todd has 2 copies of Ancient Grudge in his sideboard as well. He does have the option to bring in 1 or both copies to fight over Spellskite, and perhaps Batter Skull if he thinks Seth is going into a big control route.
Yeah, overall, Seth doesn't have... I do think this matchup gets harder for him after game 1.
I agree. And I think that Todd's sideboard cards really help him leverage the Tarmogoyfs he already has. Because backing up with more Dispels and Negates and Counterfluxes means that he can just drop one early on in the game. It's pretty hard for Seth to kill. And then if Todd gets to untap with Tarmogoyf and play in some Counterspells ready to go, that's a really good recipe.
Both players here at 7-1. They will both be back for day 2. Remember, Todd Anderson right now, number 18 on our leaderboard. With a good finish here, he could move into the top 16, earning himself a second bye at the next Open. Seth Manfield, remember, a top 8 competitor of the most recent Pro Tour. That was with Burn. Switches to Blue-Red Twin, though, and seemingly not having a problem showing off a range in his deck choices.
And what's he at now? 3 Grand Prix wins? Is that right?
That sounds right.
I know that he won a Modern Grand Prix I was at, which was Kansas City.
Right, he won in Kansas City. I know there's other ones there too.
Yep. I think 3 is what we're looking at.
Certainly, I'd say of the players that have won 3 Grand Prix in the last 5 years, manages to, and top 8 at Pro Tour, he still manages to keep himself under the radar.
Well, he's not an extroverted personality. He's not there really promoting himself very much. He's just doing his thing. I mean, I know he produces some content, but he's not really a very loud personality, nor is he going out of his way to promote himself. And unfortunately, that does count for a lot in terms of how visible you are, but Seth's results have been just excellent. There's no 2 ways about it.
Todd on the mulligan to 6, Seth keeping a 7.
And we don't see him a ton on the Open Series. When we come to the Baltimore, D.C., Philadelphia, New Jersey area, he'll show up to some of those events. But when he's here, he does seem to be very successful as well.
All right, Todd on 6 here. Certainly these post-board matchups of the twin decks are just interesting in how much they can convert. How, it really starts being just this value game.
Yep.
Todd with a pretty good 6 here. Copy of Tarmogoyf, along with some disruption. Seth starts out on just a pair of lands, passes back over to Todd. Todd with Tarmogoyf, Remand, Lightning Bolt. He's going to go ahead and Jataxian Probe here, actually.
And Probe's an insane draw for Todd because it allows him to get a sorcery in the graveyard for his Tarmogoyf and know if the coast is clear.
Yeah, Seth not even wanting to let that happen. Goes ahead and negates. That does mean that Todd gets to go straight for this Tarmogoyf if he wants to. There is no land in the graveyard, so Seth could Lightning Bolt this.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty dangerous play. Normally you see there's just a land. Someone has a Scalding Tarn somewhere.
Right.
But right now, Lightning Bolt gets the job done.
And Seth, no 3rd land, passes back. Huge opening for Todd as he swings in for 2 with Tarmogoyf. And it's the hand of a Batter Skull, Lightning Bolt, Dispel, Pestermite. Todd has set up his shop. As Seth, see if Todd can aggressively here try to Pestermite on Seth's lands. Just gonna go ahead and let Seth draw. Looks like end step he's going to, or actually yeah, still on Seth's end step, he's just gonna flash in a Snapcaster Mage to get a creature out.
And Todd's pretty thrilled with this because now it means the Bolt can go after Snapcaster Mage. That gets Tarmogoyf up to a 3/4.
Yeah, Snapcaster will swing in, Seth racing back. Todd will just go ahead and take it. No reason to be too fancy here. And Seth passes. Todd, no interest in Pestermite just yet. He's okay with this race. Now with a crack of a fetch lands, Tarmogoyf's up to a 3/4.
Yep. And I think that Todd was going to try to do some sort of dance here with Seth where maybe Seth tries to bolt the Tarmogoyf in response. Todd bolts the Snapcaster. But now with the fetch light, it's very easy for Todd. He can just go do this, probably bolt the Snapcaster now, get the Goyf up to a 4/5, and really start pressuring Seth.
And swing with Goyf in here. 3 damage. That puts Seth down to 15. Yeah. Going to go to Seth's turn, and now Todd's going to head and get aggressive here. On upkeep, he's going to use Pestering Rite to tap one of Seth's lands. That'll take down the Steam Vents. Draw for his turn. Seth's going to need to start hitting lands very soon. Snapcaster puts Todd to 13.
Yeah, the problem is with Seth here on 2 lands, it means that Todd is several turns away from having to worry about something that Seth can do, so Todd can be very aggressive adding to his board.
Now, Serum Vision's cast here draws Todd another Lightning Bolt. Seth's life total looking far lower than it looks. Todd with 6 points of burn in hand. 5 power on the board. That's got to Seth at a virtual 4 if all of those resolve.
Yeah.
It's 2 swings from lethal.
Ton of pressure. I mean, a lot of this, of course, has to do with Seth being stuck on 2 lands, but I think Tarmogoyf is a really valuable addition to have in this matchup when both decks are trying to convert into decks that don't need to combo out to win the game. And
Right.
Tarmogoyf is
He's
about as
great
well
there,
suited
yeah.
as a Magic card gets for that kind of fight.
And Todd uses 1 Lightning Bolt to down the Snapcaster Mage. That does grow the Tarmogoyf, so it is still a 2-turn clock, as that now deals 6. Todd threatening to deal 6 more, plus a Lightning Bolt for the remaining 9. We go back to Seth's turn. He draws, and looks like casts Serum Visions. Todd sitting back on a Dispel. Not a worry here. He has Lightning Bolt with Dispel to protect it.
Yep. And a
This
lethal
should just
attack.
work. So Seth finally does hit his 3rd land. That was off the Serum Visions, and he goes ahead and plays it. But this is going to be a swing for 6, puts Seth down to 3. Todd goes for the Lightning Bolt here. Seth has a remand, and that will be it. 2-0, Todd Anderson moves to 8-1, and he'll enter day 2 with a very good record.
Well, even there's some risk in Todd going for it, because as Seth has multiple copies of Dispel, and then untaps and makes land drop number 4. Now Cryptic Command's in the conversation, and it could suddenly be a game.